Let's get into the big game of the weekend. And listen, my take on this is simple. I like the Niners, and I like them pretty big. And that's not because I don't think the Eagles are good, or that's not because I think like the Eagles are this year's Minnesota Vikings. I have a ton of respect for the Eagles, and what they've done the last 2 weeks is fucking awesome. Like if I'm an Eagles fan, the last 2 weeks have been probably one of the better 6-day stretches, non-playoffs of like the last couple decades. Like what a badass couple wins. Got to be exhausted. I mean, have to just be spent. I heard Sirianni yesterday. They had to go walk through. I mean, they got multiple players. One of their safeties, what's his name? Reed, something, the white dude, played every snap. And he's like, yeah, I'll do whatever I got to do. I'm ready to do it more. I mean, they have some D linemen playing 70, 80 snaps. Obviously, some of the guys are banged up. You know, Lane Johnson, we'll see his status. You just got to be tired. You just got to be exhausted. And the Niners get the benefit. They played last Thursday night in a game beside one quarter was pretty easy on them. That wasn't exactly one of those games where you leave like, God, that was a knockdown drag out. That's going to be one where you sit in the cold tub for a couple weeks. That was like, we're going to dinner tonight. Let's go enjoy ourselves. So it's just simply based on like the Niners have way more rest. They are healthy. The Eagles are not, and they got to be fucking exhausted. And let's face it, once they beat the Bills, this game isn't as important to them. This game's very, very important to Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I think this is a massive game for Kyle Shanahan, a massive game for Brock Purdy, especially if it's sprinkling to prove that he can, somewhat play in the elements, even if it's not 20 degrees. But they're just, everything sets up for them right now. I saw Kyle, kind of push back like he was very surprised that they were the favorites. They're the favorites for a reason. Like one team's healthy, one team's not. One team has a lot of rest, the other team doesn't. And they're viewed as very similar teams in terms of high-end starting players, right? They're clearly, you could argue, the two best teams in the league. So big moment for the Niners. And honestly, I won't think anything else going into the playoffs. Like if the Niners win this game by 2 touchdowns, it won't make me view that game any differently when they play in the playoffs. I'll go, that's probably more of a pick 'em. That's probably more, this game could go any other way, especially if it's in Philly. This is just a very unique circumstance. Think about times when, you have a couple long weeks of work, right? And you're just exhausted. You also have a couple social obligations. Maybe you got some family stuff, taking your kids around, doing something with your wife. And then you just hit a day. You're like, I just hit a wall. I need a day of sleep. How do the Eagles not feel like that right now? I mean, I can't even imagine being some of their players. Hell, some of their coaches. I mean, Sirianni was telling, where did they play last week? Bills. So they were telling, it would have been Romo and Nance. I mean, the guy's sleeping in the office. I saw a picture of him the other day. He looks exhausted. So you just, like, every once in a while, we're all humans. They're a football team full of humans. You kind of run out of gas. And then you kind of recharge and you get ready for next week, which, let's face it, is the division. If the Eagles were to win that game, even if they lose it, they'll be fine. The Niners still have to play the Ravens. It's not like the Niners would have the number 1 seed with a win. This game just means dramatically more to the Niners. I don't think it matters that much to the Eagles. Not it doesn't matter to their players, but I just mean in the grand scheme of things, like if they lose it, so what? Very understandable. Let's fly around. Speaking of the Eagles, for the first time, Monday Night Football flexed the game. And I have no problem with it. I saw some people, it was Kansas City against the Patriots, and they flexed that game out, put it on Sunday, and they moved the Eagles-Seattle game from Sunday to Monday night. Of course they did. You cannot, if you have the option, put the Patriots in front of the country. Can't do it. I mean, they are too boring. They are too difficult of a watch. Even Patriot fans would tell you. It's awful. Even everyone that's listening right now that hates that fan, that hit us up in the mailbag that said he's a lifelong Patriot fan, that he's thinking about changing teams because it's gotten so ugly. Like, yeah, we're all old enough to remember how good it looked. This team is unwatchable. Like, it's not even debatable. It's the Giants with Tommy DeVito is dramatically a better watch than Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi and the demise of Belichick. It's not fun to watch. No one wants to consume that. So, yeah, does it suck if you bought tickets and hotel rooms, you got to change it around, plane tickets? Totally. I get it. I got news for you. The NFL is not Like their business model is not dependent on you sitting in a seat. It's just not. And I've gone to NFL games for a decade. And I would say a decade ago, it was definitely more important. But in 2023, just like moving forward, your value as an in-season ticket holder, right? Someone that goes to games, your value to the league is less than mine and everyone listening to this that sits on their couch and watches games. We're more valuable than the guy paying for a ticket. It's just a fact. So when I see people online bitching and moaning, they don't care about the person at the game. No, they don't really. Because the thing that pays the bills in this business is the television product. And we just saw Seattle tonight. Easy watch, fun watch, enjoyable team. Obviously, the Eagles, one of the best teams the last couple of years. I mean, it's a no-brainer. You can't throw Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, and Belichick right now in front of the consumer. It's not fair to us. The other thing is, as you're seeing some of these television ratings, once college football kind of ends, the NFL takes over December. They've taken over Christmas. They said, Adam Silver, we're going to run you over. You're irrelevant. In a couple weeks, there are 3 games on Saturday. The month of December is massive for the National Football League. They want to dominate. They're like a boa constrictor right now, and they're just squeezing everyone out that's in their way. And that's what these games give them opportunity to do. Tonight, who are they up against? What else is going on? They have no competition. Just like that Monday night game in a couple weeks. They're not competing. There's no games that matter that they're playing against. So, listen, I feel for the people involved, right? If it's a fan, if it's, a coach that this throws everything off. Hell, to me, if you're the Chiefs, I was looking at their schedule. This is a pretty big win. Like, you don't want to play on Monday night. This is a huge advantage for the Chiefs. If you would have asked Andy Reid, do you want to change? He would say, hell yeah. Because it's actually during a pretty easy stretch of their season. He'd rather just play Sunday, 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 Sunday. He doesn't want to play Monday, short week. So if you're the Chiefs, big win. Eagles, not ideal. Just given that, like, you would rather just get in a rhythm of not playing Monday night games in December. Like, I think if you polled the league, they would like to avoid it. It's one thing earlier in the season to get up for. What you get, in December headed toward the playoffs, Sunday, 7 days rest, consistency of your schedule. So big break for the Chiefs to just avoid. It's in New England. I mean, shit. Let's just beg that bad boy out 1:00 Eastern and get home. One thing that just won't die. I have read so many articles about Vrabel and everything that's going on with Tennessee, and just we've been talking about it for a while. One thing I've seen, and listen, I understand it because this program, when you have the amount, like the reason Texas A&M can go, we're going to call Dan Campbell. Because when they call him, they go, Dan, we'll give you $100 million, right? You can't just say, if you're a program, I'll call an NFL coach if you don't have the checkbook to write him something to make him listen. Now, I know Dan, claims he didn't listen, but like you pick up the phone because it's so much money, even if you want no part of it. Ohio State could do the same thing. Like, hey, Mike, you want 7 years, $100 million? Like, you name, we'll give you a blank check. But here's the thing, and I said this about Dan Campbell, and I'll say it for Mike Vrabel, because until this story kind of dies with Vrabel, if Mike Vrabel does somehow go their separate ways from Tennessee, I think every single job opening in the pros would be lined up to hire him. I think teams would even think about firing their coach. Like if the Patriots were like, yeah, I'll just roll Belichick back 1 year, they'd fire him immediately. Washington be all over, Tepper be all over, the Chargers be all over. Like, you want no part of recruiting. I mean, seeing everything that's going on with the transfer portal, NIL, can you imagine what a pain in the ass that is? At least with the NFL, March 15th, free agency starts. If you got cap room, you can sign guys. If you don't, you can't. Then the draft, like, where are your picks? I mean, it's very black and white what you can do. You could quote unquote tamper behind the scenes and see what you get guys for, but it's like you either have the money or you don't under the cap space. You actually have the money, but if you have the ability to allocate it towards certain guys or not. Like in college, like, can we get a booster to cut us this check? Can we figure out how to get this guy? Can we force this guy out? We got to keep this guy happy. I'd want no part of that. The NFL, while dramatically more difficult because of the quality of talent spread around the league, it's a much easier job of just coaching your players, not having to worry about a lot of stuff that's out of your control. So if Mike Vrabel does become available, I can see unless I'm wrong, under no circumstances him going to Ohio State. And he'd be crazy too. Like pick your job in the NFL. Hell, even if you want to sit out a year, you'd be the number one candidate for the next several years.